Welcome back, listeners. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're taking you to a fascinating corner of the world to learn about the Araucana people.
Their family structure is, well, definitely not what you'd find in your typical sociology textbook.
Right. Forget the nuclear family. These folks are all about what they call a love diamond.
And that's just the beginning. Their whole approach to respect and discipline is, well, let's just say unique.
So we've got two families at the heart of it all, right? The Pondomas and the Lennon and Ebbs. They live together, all part of this love diamond thing.
Exactly. Living in a pretty incredible hacienda-style triplex, actually.
You're kidding. Okay, so how does this whole love diamond family structure actually work? I mean, who's married to who and how many kids are we talking about?
All right, so each family in the Love Diamond has two husbands and two wives,
Wow, okay.
all raising their combined 7 children together.
7 kids. That's a full house. So where does everyone sleep? I mean, is this triplex like a giant slumber party?
Not quite. The first unit is actually for the grandparents.
That makes sense, keeping it multi-generational.
Yep. And the parents of the main husband and wife. Then, the Love Diamond families live in the second unit.
Okay. I'm picturing like a Brady Bunch situation, but with double the parents.
It's actually a bit more organized than that. The children are separated by their father and gender, so each father's kids live on opposite sides of the hallway.
That's really interesting. So it highlights both the individual lineage and the blended family bond.
Yeah, exactly. They really put a lot of thought into the setup.
And there's a third unit, right?
Well,
What's the deal with that one?
this is where it gets really interesting. The Araucana have this deep belief in what they call the power of three.
The power of three. I'm intrigued.
That third unit, it's always kept ready for guests or travelers.
Seriously, they just have a whole separate apartment ready to go at all times. That's pretty incredible.
And get this, every family member contributes to keeping that guest unit ready.
Wow. Talk about built-in hospitality. So I guess they never have to scramble for an air mattress when someone comes to visit. This power of three thing is growing on me already.
It's definitely a core part of their culture.
But getting back to the families themselves, within the love diamond, do the wives have specific roles? I mean, is it like a division of labor kind of thing?
Absolutely. The main wife is traditionally the homemaker, managing the household and raising the children.
Makes sense. That's a lot to handle, even with two husbands helping out.
In this case, that's Kandusara.
Okay. What about Tarantula, the second wife? What does she do?
She's often employed or runs a business.
So, like a modern career woman?
Exactly. Tarantula actually owns a shop, which shows that entrepreneurship is definitely encouraged for women in this society.
That's pretty cool. So we've got two wives, each with her own defined role. But you mentioned earlier that a husband could have up to 5 wives. How does that work?
Well, it's not as chaotic as it might sound. Each wife has a specific place in the hierarchy.
A hierarchy, huh? So there's like a first wife, a second wife, and so on.
Yeah, you could say that. And with that comes clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Think of it like a well-oiled machine.
Each part with its own crucial function. Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. It's definitely different from what we're used to, but it sounds like it could be a really powerful system of support, especially with a big family.
Especially when everyone's contributing.
Speaking of contributing, how early do Araucanic children start taking on responsibilities? Like, are we talking chores from toddlerhood or...
Their training for adulthood actually starts at age 12 for boys and 14 for girls.
Whoa, that's pretty young. What kind of training are we talking about here?
Well, for the boys, it's all about preparing them to be protectors of society.
Protectors. So like mini warriors in training.
You could say that. They have a very structured weekly schedule that includes grilling, learning basic repairs around the house, and even functional exercises and martial arts.
Wow. So it's like boot camp for manhood. Do they even get time to just be kids, hang out with their friends, play video games, all that?
Oh, they definitely get time for that too.
Okay, good.
But the emphasis is definitely on building practical skills.
And self-sufficiency, it sounds like.
Right. It's not just physical training, though. They also learn about faith, like personal finance, and even things like orienteering, navigating with maps and compasses.
Wow. That's a seriously well-rounded education.
They believe in preparing them for anything life throws their way.
I can see that. So what about the girls? What does their training involve?
For them, the focus is more on domestic skills and etiquette. They learn cooking, meal preparation, gardening.
So more traditional roles then?
To some extent, yes. But they also get involved in basic repairs and functional exercises, too. It's not all about being a homemaker.
Interesting. So both boys and girls are equipped to handle practical matters, even if there are still some traditional roles in place. And I can't forget about those tribal tattoos they get at these ages. Do those have some special meaning?
They're definitely not just for decoration.
Yeah, I figured there had to be more to it than that.
They mark the acceptance of greater responsibility within the community. The specific design often represents the regional tribe they belong to.
So, like a badge of honor.
Exactly. For example, young women from the countryside region receive a heart-shaped tattoo on their forehead.
Oh, I read about that. It symbolizes their role as the heart of the home world, which is a pretty beautiful concept.
It is, and the young men usually get theirs on the right arm. It signifies their transition into those protectors of society we talked about.
Makes sense. And the whole thing's a big community event, right?
Absolutely. It's a huge celebration. Imagine you're 12 or 14 years old, surrounded by your family and the village elders.
And you're officially entering adulthood.
Right. Fully committing to the Arikana way of life.
It sounds like a powerful moment of belonging. Now, we've talked a lot about the eldest siblings. What about the middle and youngest children? What are their roles in all of this?
The middle children have a really interesting role. They're expected to support their older siblings and protect their younger ones.
So they're like the bridge between the two.
Yeah. It's like built-in leadership training.
No middle child syndrome here, it sounds like.
Not at all. And then you have the youngest children. They're cherished and allowed to enjoy their childhood.
Ah, the perks of being the baby of the family.
But they still pick up basic life skills along the way, of course.
It's amazing how everyone has their place and purpose in this system.
It really does foster that sense of interdependence that seems to be at the heart of Arikana culture.
Yeah. Each role, big or small, contributing to the whole. But this might be a question for later. I'm starting to wonder about their views on individuality, personal expression. It's all very structured, so I'm curious how they navigate that.
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely delve into. It's easy to look at the Arikana and think, wow, it's all duty and tradition, but they actually make space for individuality.
Really? So it's not like they're, raising little robots.
Exactly. Both boys and girls get time during the week to just, as our sources put it, rest and be a kid.
Okay, that's good to hear. I was picturing something a lot more rigid.
Right. They're encouraged to explore their interests, develop hobbies, get into crafts, anything that lets those personalities shine through.
So it's not about suppressing individuality. It's more like build a strong foundation first.
Yeah, like here are the tools you need to succeed in our society. Now go find your passion within that.
I like that. Create some resilient, resourceful people, I bet. But let's shift gears a bit. We touched on their discipline system earlier.
Right. Respect being huge.
Yeah, huge EE. So more than just saying please and thank you, right?
Oh, way more. For them, it's about genuinely recognizing everyone's worth and dignity, no matter their role or status.
Powerful stuff. But how do they ensure everyone's on the same page with showing that respect?
Well, remember how we talked about discipline being woven into their culture? It's not about punishment for its own sake. They believe respect is something you earn through discipline.
So the consequences are about
What?
restoring balance when someone steps out of line.
Exactly. It's not just between the two people involved either. Let's say someone's being disrespectful, elders will alert others, and then those people are expected to basically ignore the offender.
It's like a community-wide timeout until they get their act together.
You got it. And the consequences themselves. Tailored to how bad the offense was.
So for minor stuff,
Yeah.
are we talking timeouts, writing lines? What's the Arikana equivalent?
It can be a verbal warning, or for more serious things, maybe physical punishment or some rights taken away temporarily. And in extreme cases, like really serious stuff, they might even banish someone to the outskirts of the country.
Banishment. That sounds intense. Is there like any coming back from that?
It's not permanent exile, thankfully. They really emphasize forgiveness. The person who is disrespected actually gets to decide if they forgive.
And if they do?
Then the offender can be brought back into the community. They call it restorative justice.
So it's about repairing relationships, not just punishing the person.
Right. Applies to children too, by the way.
Those reform camps we talked about. For kids who are acting up.
Exactly. Second chances are a big deal for the Arikana.
It really makes you think about how WE approached discipline, doesn't it? But I gotta ask, with such a strong emphasis on respect, is there ever room for, disagreement, debate? Wouldn't people be afraid to speak their minds?
That's a great point. It's a balance for sure. maintaining order but allowing healthy discussion too.
So how does that work in practice? Do they, like, have town hall meetings to air grievances? Or is it more about respecting the elders' decisions and just going with the flow?
Well, their system definitely hierarchical, and respecting elders is important, but that doesn't mean differing opinions are shut down.
So there are ways to voice concerns.
Yeah, from what I've gathered, there are established channels for that, proposing solutions, that kind of thing.
So it's not like you'd get banished for just disagreeing with someone.
Not at all. It's more about how you express your disagreement. Respectful and thoughtful, your voice is heard, disruptive, well, then you might be facing those consequences.
Makes sense. It all circles back to respect, really.
Hmm.
Not just about avoiding punishment. It's creating a society where people feel safe to share their ideas.
Exactly, and that's something W could learn from. Right.
Totally. This deep dive has been seriously eye-opening. Their love diamond families, the responsibility, the discipline, it all points to a society that values harmony above all else.
And while it might seem totally foreign to us, there's something to be said for their commitment to strong relationships.
Addressing conflict with compassion, that kind of thing.
Right. As we wrap up, I want you to think about what aspects of Araucana culture stood out to you most.
What surprised you? Challenge your assumptions.
Maybe it'll even inspire you to look at your own relationships differently, find ways to build more connection and respect.
Until next time, folks, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Okay, so let's dish. What's the real deal with these love diamond relationships? Are they actually as harmonious as they sound?
Well, it's not like some fairy tale where everyone's always happy and skipping through meadows holding hands.
Right. Human emotions are messy no matter where you go.
Exactly. So, yeah, there are definitely bumps in the road.
I figured as much. So how do they deal with, like, jealousy, competition? I mean, you've got two wives and two husbands all living under one roof.
Well, from what I've gathered, they're pretty intentional about addressing those issues head on.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not like a taboo subject they just avoid talking about.
Oh, not at all. They actually have specific rituals and practices to help keep things harmonious within the love diamond.
Rituals. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Think like group meditations, family counseling sessions with elders. They even do shared creative projects where all four spouses work together to express their feelings.
Wow. So it's not just about dividing up chores and childcare. It's about actually nurturing those emotional connections.
Right. And remember, the whole community is invested in these families. So if there's conflict, it's not just a private matter, it's something everyone helps to address.
I love that. It really does take a village, doesn't it? This whole conversation has me thinking about how we approach relationships in our own culture. We're so focused on individual happiness. Maybe we're missing out on something with this more collective approach.
It's definitely food for thought. Maybe there's some lessons we can learn from the Araucana.
For sure. Speaking of lessons, as we've been talking, I keep thinking back to those reform camps for the kids.
The ones designed to teach respect, right?
Yeah. What exactly I consider disrespectful in Araucana society? I mean, is it just talking back to your parents, or is it something more than that?
It goes way beyond just being sassy to your elders. They have a really nuanced understanding of what constitutes disrespect, and it kind of changes depending on your age and social standing.
So, like, what's disrespectful for a kid might not be a big deal for an adult.
Exactly. For kids, it's about learning those basic manners, respecting the family hierarchy, not interrupting adults, doing chores without complaining, that kind of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. What about for adults, though? What would land them in hot water?
Anything that disrupts the social harmony or goes against their values, like gossiping, spreading rumors, breaking promises, dishonesty.
So it's not just about your individual actions. It's about how those actions affect everyone else.
Right. And remember, their whole discipline system is about restoring balance. So even banishment isn't about excluding someone forever. It's about giving them time to reflect and make amends.
It's a very different way of looking at things. Focus on healing, not just punishment.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
I completely agree. This deep dive into the Araucana world has been truly fascinating. Their family structure, their values, their approach to community. It's all so different from what we're used to, but there's so much we can learn from them.
For sure. Their commitment to strong relationships, their emphasis on respect and harmony, those are values that can benefit any society.
Well said. As we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought. What aspects of Araucana culture resonated with you the most? What surprised you? What challenged your assumptions?
And how might those insights inspire you to approach your own life and relationships differently?
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of our Arcana society. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.